In this video, we're going to show you the correct method for cooking perfect basic beef tongue and start with this and end up with this juicy, flavorful tray of beef tongue. We buy Angus beef tongue that comes frozen and vacuum packed. We try to buy two of the same size, and these particular ones are 1.47 and 1.33 pounds. That way, whenever we put it in the pot, they can cook about the same time and they're both done around the same time instead of having a big one and a little one together. This is what they look like out of the package before we cook them. We like to take off any excess fat that we don't want to cook with them. There's usually not too much with them, but just trim off any of the white fat that you see that you don't really want to cook with it. We use a 6-quart enameled cast iron covered Dutch oven for our basic cooking pot. For 2 tongue, we use 8 cups of hot water. We use bouillon cubes to make the beef broth for non-critical things like beef tongue. When the broth's important, we make our own beef broth. We never use broth from a carton or can. While the water is heating, we crush 12 beef bouillon cubes. Those of you familiar with Japanese cooking, we use a suribachi and surikogi. You can do the same with a mortar and pestle. If you don't have either of these, and if time permits, you can put the hard cubes in water and let them soak. After the water is heated and starting to steam, add the crushed beef cubes. We don't add vegetables and spices when we cook the tongue because it does very little, if anything, to the flavor of the cooked tongue when it's finished. Then add your beef tongue. Make sure everything's covered. And put your lid on the pot. After the tongues and beef broth have heated up, skim the impurities from the top of the water. It's not necessary to remove all of it. You want to get a feel of how tough the raw tongue is so you can properly gauge its tenderness when it's done. There's no need to drive the fork into the meat at this point. The meat is done when the fork will easily penetrate through the meat. And then remove any additional impurities that have come to the top. Now place the cover back on your pot and set the burner temperature down. On our stove, we set it to between 3 and 5. Then start a timer counting up. For the 2 beef tongues the size we're cooking, it will take approximately 1.5 to 2 hours. Cooking your beef tongue for a predetermined amount of time without consideration for its weight and size, or putting your beef tongue in a crock pot and walking away for 6 hours doesn't cut the mustard in Brigen's kitchen. Overcooked beef tongue is edible and will go unnoticed by those unfamiliar with it. Then skim off any additional impurities that have come to surface and make sure you keep your cooking level at a nice simmer and not a boil. The tongues have been cooking 21 minutes, and we're just going to check the simmer to make sure everything's going okay. And that looks great. Now it's been 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we just want to double check and make sure the simmer's going the way it should be. And it looks good too. It's been 1 hour and 51 minutes. We're going to check the tenderness of the tongue and see if they need to cook longer. Put a fork into the tongue and see if it falls off the fork easily, which both of them seem to be cooked, so it's time to take them out of the pot. Transfer the cooked tongues to a tray and let them cool for 10 to 15 minutes. And the broth is a good broth if you care for the taste of the beef. And we, a lot of times, will keep that and make some onion soup with it. It's been 10 minutes that the tongue have cooled, and we're ready to remove the skin from the tongue. We find it works best to slice the skin along the top and then peel it. As you can see, you really can't start at the underneath. And you can see once you start to get a spot where it peels, it comes off really easy. And there it is when it's finished. Now we'll peel the second tongue. Once you have your perfect beef tongue cooked and peeled, it's time to slice it to your desired thickness. We like to slice them to use alongside our breakfast eggs or just eat for a snack. Or you can use it for any recipe you may have refined. You can see how juicy and tender the meat is. Beef tongue's 75% fat. Some people like to make sandwiches with it. Whichever way you choose, the tongue is done to perfection and is moist, tender, and has a rich beefy flavor. And that's what makes it so good. To put some of the tongue away for later, we like to spread the tongue out on wax paper to freeze the slices as individuals. Then we vacuum pack them so that when we just want to grab a slice or two, we don't have to thaw them all, just what we want to use. Other great things are coming soon to the Brygen channel. Please subscribe and stay in touch. If you cook and try Brygen tongue, I'm sure you'll be back for more. Thanks for watching.